The Taming of Coyote, Chapter 20. It wasn't the last time that Coyote saw Lorraine. From then on, she seemed eager to test him, come into the woods in hopes that he would appear. Avery had told her a wonderful thing. She had shared her incident with him, as she did just about everything else. To it, he rubbed his wrinkled chin and said, "Oh my, he has finally shown himself again, after so long. You are quite blessed, my dear Lorraine. He is the king of coyotes. It is within his hands, his paws, that the foundation of Tern stands." That had excited Lorraine considerably. She had met the creature of legend. She had touched the very spirit that had gifted Tern to Avery so many years ago. Now she vowed to see him again, touch him again, as much as she could. He was a faithful fellow. He always came when she called him. She played with him and cherished all of her time with him. He was her special friend, and she loved him. Perhaps she was a bit selfish with him. She didn't want to share him with anyone else. Nobody else got to enjoy him the way she did. This time was no different. Lorraine ventured into a glen. The ground was covered in soft grass and gnarled trees, twisted into a sort of dome over a cool pond. It was almost like a natural temple made by nature herself. Perhaps, though, Coyote had used his powers to create his temple. "Hello? Coyote? Your Majesty? Are you here?" "What is with this Your Majesty nonsense?" he called down. He was lying along the trunk of a tree not completely felled. "I have told you that you needn't be so formal." "There you are," she cheered. He got to his feet and made his way to the ground. She approached, and, as per her routine, began to pet and scratch. He was submissively on his back in no time. As Lorraine proceeded to pet and scratch his chest and belly, Coyote wagged his tail, his tongue flopped out of his mouth, and he kicked his hind leg. "Can I ask you a question?" "You can ask whatever you want, Lorraine." "Grandpa said that you used to come to Tern all the time." "Ah, your grandparents were about your age when I decided to pause my visits." "Why?" she asked. "Did something happen?" "Oh, your great-grandfather didn't need me any more. There were ample coyotes to protect the village in my absence. We needed some space. I had other things to attend to, and Avery needed some space to realize that he could lead Tern without me by his side. Now, it works like a well-oiled machine. I did not wish to hover over him. He has grown, and I wanted him to continue to grow, as well as his legacy." "Will you ever return to Tern?" Coyote rolled himself upright. "Perhaps one day. I would love to go back to Tern. There is much that has changed since I was there last." "It would please Grandpa, and it would be such an honor." She gave him a hug about his bushy neck. "It would also please me." Coyote licked her face. "Perhaps some day soon I will take up that offer and return to the village of Tern." These visits and interactions were frequent. In only a few short years, the child that Lorraine once was began to blossom into a young woman. She, if it were possible, grew more beautiful every day. Coyote would grow even more eager for Lorraine's visits. He would even regret the time of day that she would have to leave him to return to the village. How ironic. It had come about so gradually. He had fallen in love with her. Coyote couldn't stand to be separated from Lorraine. Every day when she would tell him, "I have to go. I love you. Same time tomorrow," he would debate the revisit of Tern. She would be enough to bring him back. To hear her say those 3 words in the middle over and over again to him, that would be enough. But how would he go about pursuing her? How would he woo her to be his own? A breeze rustled through the leaves, now painted for autumn. They hissed and crackled. Some dead leaves even rained down. It was as if the woods had spoken to him. Whatever they had said remained a silent secret. However, Coyote knew now just what to do. Lorraine kneeled at the bottom of a dummy to examine the hems. Her mother was making a beautiful costume for her. Even right up to the deadline, she worked her fingers swiftly. "Do you think it'll be done by tonight?" "Would you calm down, Lorraine?" her mother sighed with a hint of a smile. "It'll be done on time. You're so fussy." "But this is my favorite day of the year, Mother." She brought her dainty hands together like a squirrel holding a nut. "I've never missed a masque." "You won't miss it this year either. One day she'll find a husband with just as much passion," Lorraine's father remarked as he puffed on his pipe. "Maybe," Lorraine swooned. "So, what will you be going as this year, Lorraine?" he asked. "I'll be going as a fairy princess," she replied dramatically. "I'm even going to have beautiful wings." "Oh, wonderful. You'll be the belle of the ball for sure." Music played in the great building in the square. It was much like a huge barn, but used for such gathering events. The masque was one of the most anticipated events of the year. Aside from the symbolic value of frightening off evil spirits and ill-meaning souls, there was the sheer joy of putting one's creativity to work to create a piece of art to be adorned. Then there was the chance to simply dance the night away. Costumes came in all sorts. Some of the Turnians had minimal creativity. A simple full or half mask on their face and clothing of their festival best was the extent of their artistic abilities. For others, it was a chance to strut their stuff in elaborate disguises. This would be a night of great delight. Within the barn, Avery sat at a table with a simple half mask over his face. He was getting a bit too old to keep up with the much spunkier youth. His grandson and granddaughter-in-law were only slightly more formal, dressed something like a pair of black and white swans. It was Lorraine that took the cake. Her gown was layered with such lovely colored fabric. Wings, a mix of bat and fairy, glittered upon her back. Her hair was decorated and styled with glittered and colorful ribbons. Her face was spruced up with spots of fanciful makeup. She was a vision of Titania herself. Boys that had become young men certainly took an interest in her. For once, she was a lady, and not a female version of themselves. It was flattering, for they never seemed to notice her otherwise. The dancing was wild and boisterous, which kept energetic young men at her side to release the enthusiasm that had built up over the year. Or since the last festival. However, once the music died down and became slow, Lorraine was left alone as a lovely wallflower, while the boys found more common girly beauties to pursue. She looked about with a sigh. Then she approached one of the tables. "Grandpa?" "Do you need a dance partner, Lorraine?" he chuckled, wobbling as he got to his feet. It wasn't her first choice, but dancing with her great-grandfather was better than dancing alone. As the music played, and a cyclone of Mardi Gras-style masks danced about the barn, a new face joined the crowd. He walked so tall and majestically. He seemed handsome for what could be seen, for he was in a full mask and well dressed. He wore black riding pants and black boots. A black vest seemed to sink into a bright yellow button-up. He seemed to glitter from head to black gloves to toe. It was as if he wore the night sky. A cape draped nobly over his shoulders. As for his mask, the entire front of his face was covered. Encircling the cheeks and ears were tufts of soft black feathers. The mask was black and had narrow eyes, tall ears and a long muzzle. Coyote had come. He followed his nose, even through the mask. His steps were smooth, noble, and graceful. All eyes seemed to follow him, and almost as if in slow motion, a path was cleared for the unknown Adonis as he made his way to his target. When he approached Avery and Lorraine, they stopped their dance to watch him curiously. "Good evening, friend," Avery greeted. "How can we help you?" "I asked for a blessing, friend Avery Turn," Coyote replied. Avery gasped and was finally able to place a name upon the stranger, but he had never seen this form before. This was not the human form Coyote had taken before. Still, he stepped back respectfully. "Is this a blessing I am able to give, sire?" Coyote's eyes fell on the slightly confused Lorraine. He knelt down on one knee and gently took her hand. "Fair Titania, may I steal you from the worn Oberon? Would you grace this humble and mischievous Puck with a dance?" Who might my adoring Puck be the rest of the year?" "You are the darling Lorraine Turn, and I am but a coyote." Lorraine let out a gasp as her heart leapt into her throat. She almost stumbled backwards. She probably would have if Coyote didn't have her hand. "Coyote?" "Yes," he chuckled. He stood and admired the smile that had grown upon her face. She seemed to melt into him as he took hold of her. To Lorraine there was just no words for her feelings. The mighty Coyote had taken on a human form. Out of all the girls in the village, he had come for her. He danced with such grace that it almost felt as if they were walking on air. They were quite a pair. All eyes had to behold their combined magnificence. "Why have you come?" she asked him in a breathy whisper. "For you," he replied, as if it were so obvious. She reached up and gently pulled the mask from his face. Oh, his youthful self was so beautiful. His green eyes seemed to sparkle like emeralds embedded within amber. "Why me? What is so special about me?" "Dear Lorraine," he purred, "why not? I could not ignore the words of my lady fair any longer. When a lady tells a man that she loves him, how can he turn away from her?" "I do. Did we not grow close over the years? I suppose it never occurred to me that we'd ever be this close." "Does this displease you? I could return to—" "No!" she replied quickly. "No, this is fine." She blushed deeply. "I am honored, Your Majesty." He cringed. "Ugh, Lorraine, I've told you not to call me that. Just Coyote. Just this simple, poor, love-struck Coyote." "Coyote," she sighed dreamily. "I come with a proposition, Lorraine," Coyote said boldly. "I will be direct. I wish for a bride. I wish you for my bride." Lorraine froze. Her voice and breath were caught in her throat. The god of Turn. He had just proposed. To her. Avery had spoken so good of him, and he had been great company as a coyote. Was there a reason why not? She tried to answer him, yet no words would come out. His charming, fang grin only made it harder. Still, he waited ever so patiently. After a few minutes, he leaned forward, hand stroking her cheek as he graced her lips with a kiss. She seemed to fall breathlessly into him. She gripped into his back. He tried to keep her on her feet, yet held her close to him. Oh, she smelled so good. "Is that a yes?" he whispered. "Yes," she breathed. Lorraine was giddy. Word spread like wildfire throughout Turn. Coyote was returning to Turn. A grand omen was upon them. Some were happy, and some were jealous. but all wished her ladyship the best, and they were sure that she would get it. She spun around as she tried on her bridal gown. Her mother chased the hem desperately like a kitten after a string of yarn to pin it. "Oh, Grandpa, isn't this amazing?" "It is," Avery replied flatly. "He's so beautiful. He's more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. But then, he is like a god after all." "I wouldn't get your hopes up too high, Lorraine," he warned gently. "Why not? What's wrong with Coyote?" "Coyotes are tricksters, Lorraine. Granted, I believe that his intentions are genuine. He would never intentionally do anything to bring you harm or ill will. But it would do you good to prepare for his days of mischief. Remember, there is no turning back once you have chosen this path officially. You are agreeing to take him, all of him, as a husband. You're only just becoming a young lady. There is much you still need to learn. Can you leave your days of girlhood behind?" Lorraine seemed rather confused. Of all people, Avery should have had the best to say. Yet it was as if he was so worried about her. Did he know something that no one else did? If he did, what was it? Why was he keeping it from her? A grand wedding took place on a warm autumn day. A reception followed into the cool afternoon. Such a party! But even with great community support, Lorraine was glad to be home, and the house built for them. She had that beautiful god to herself. Finally, it would be the mighty Coyote that would make her a woman. She sat on the bed, bathed in the firelight from the bedroom fireplace. She tried to steady her breath as her skin warmed. It was so quiet. So clearly she could hear the crickets outside and the fires crackle. Other than that, the world seemed still. Soon she could hear her own heart beating. She swallowed hard before letting out a long, slow exhale. She would be ready for him. "Coyote?" She could hear his footsteps coming into the room and along the opposite side of the bed. "I'm here," he replied. He seemed to be stalling. "Lorraine, do you truly love me?" "Of course I do," she replied. "Why would I marry you if I didn't?" "Why?" "You are so kind, so wise, and so gentle. I consider it an honor." "Is that so?" "Why do you question me now?" Lorraine frowned. "Have I displeased you in some way already?" "No, not as of yet. You've been so perfect. Everything about you is perfect. But what if I were not?" "What sort of question is that?" she chuckled. "You're perfect. You're a coyote." "You have only known me as an animal until recently. Can you honestly say that you are attracted to the man that I really could be?" Lorraine began to feel strange. Why was Coyote talking so weird? What was all of this about, all of a sudden? "I will do my best to be a good wife to you." Coyote reached out and placed his hands on her arms. He braced himself and scooted a little closer as he whispered her name. She turned around in anticipation. She wanted to finally face him, but she let out a gasp and quickly covered her bare chest. She pulled from his hands and got to her feet. "What?" "Lorraine, who are you?" she cried out. "What sort of cruel joke is this?" Coyote cringed back. He was not the form of a foxy youth that had wooed her so easily. He was his true self now. It was not what Lorraine had expected to see. She trembled as tears dribbled down her face. He was afraid she'd react something like that. If only she had paid heed to Avery's warning. "Lorraine, it's me. It's Coyote. This is the real me." "No," she sobbed. No, 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 no. Lorraine, no! You're not! You lied to me! How could you do this to me? You made a fool out of me! Is this your idea of a joke? Do you see me laughing, Lorraine? He asked in a steady tone. This is no joke. I did this because I love you. I really do want to be with you. He reached out for her. I will be good to you, I swear it. No! She cried out, pulling from him. Don't touch me! Please, please, please don't touch me! Don't touch me! Oh my God, I can't believe this! Can't you turn back? Well, I could, but it would be so empty. There would be so little to this marriage. You see, Lorraine, I can't. He paused, as if a little embarrassed by what he was about to say. Perform, unless it is in one of my true forms. The Coyote form, and this. He eyed her seriously. Is that the sort of relationship that you want? To never know a man? Your own husband? I... Lorraine stammered. Coyote pointed a finger at her to be sure that he had her attention. Know this. You have vowed to be my wife and honor me as your husband. Our bond is strictly ours. I will not tolerate an unfaithful bride. Lorraine paled. It was as if he had read her curious notions as they zipped through her mind. How did he do that? I don't know. You are mine, Lorraine. I will hold you to your vows. It is at this point that I can do with you as I please. His words only frightened her more. She had never fathomed that Coyote would be as vicious as he was kind. She brought her hands to her tearful face. Stop it. Please stop it. I can't. I just can't. Coyote let out a sigh. He got to his feet and motioned his hand to the bed. Come now. Please, I don't think... You are not attracted to what you see, he stated. Really now. You mustn't tantrum over reality revealing itself over the fantasy that you've clouded your eyes and mind with. He paused and took in the sight of the sobbing beauty. Still, I am no heartless tyrant. I will not force you to do anything with me that you do not want. Our vows were final. The fact of you and this relationship rests in your hands. With that, he stood and began to head for the door. Where are you going? She asked him. You are not ready for my company, so I shall relinquish the bed to you. I will stay in the den. You may feel more at ease with a dog out there than your groom in here. She watched silently a moment as he left her alone. What had she done? The godly youth was no youth at all, but that man... Coyote had used trickery so that she would see the illusion of beauty. That cur! And now she was trapped in a marriage with him. He would surely kill her if she strayed. But how could she stay now? What would she do? In overwhelming fret, Lorraine flung herself onto the bed. She buried her face into the pillows and released hard, wet sobs. She had just given away the rest of her life. The price was heavy, and she could do nothing to get it back.